Hello, my name's Ian, and I'm here to give you a presentation on the Y90 Therasphere therapy. Now, just a couple basic things to go over. So for like the stuff that we're used to, right? Like the kind of collimators, the windows, the imaging and whatnot. I kind of set that here. So like we'll be using the low energy, high resolution collimators with a 15% xenon window centered at 81 KeV, and then we have supine imaging, and the images will be taken anterior, posterior for 2 minutes, positioned over the liver, because that's what kind of the Theraspheres are focusing on. And when we do the radiopharmaceutical injection, it'll be through a central line and special procedures, and this is set by the rate set by the interventional radiologist and also the dose. So the dose is variable depending on what we'll go over soon. And the radiopharmaceutical is it's called a Y90, but they're like microspheres. And then some indications for this scan would be an unresectable hepatocellular carcinoma or hepatic metastatic colorectal cancer. And some contraindications include overwhelming hepatopulmonary shunting or reflux into the gastroduodenal arteries. And we'll kind of go over why the shunting is important shortly. So before the procedure, what's interesting about this scan is that there's a lot of prep that goes into it. Like I know when we think of prep, we kind of think of like the thyroid ablations. You know, there's a lot of explaining that needs to be done there. And here, it kind of reminds me of that because there's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration before we do this scan. Because basically, there's a tumor on the liver, and it can either be on the anterior lobe or the posterior lobe. And with these microspheres, what they do is they kill the tumor, but they also, if you give too much or too little, you either will not kill enough of the tumor, or you'll kill too much. You'll kill the tumor, but then you'll kill normal hepatic tissue around it. So you have to be very particular about the dose, about your calculations, and a lot of other stuff that we'll go over. But before we do the procedure, we'll actually do what's called an MAA liver scan, and this is to help determine the dosage, the amount of dose that we'll be delivering of the Y90 to the liver. And so how we'll do that is we're going to be determining how much vascular shunting is coming from the liver tumor to the lungs. So what you'll do is you'll inject 5 millicuries of technetium-99 MAA, or microaggregated albumin, in special procedures, and the amount of MAA taken up in the liver determines the dose delivered, but also the vascular shunting as well. And again, that dose is going to be chosen by the interventional radiologist. So the geometric mean is found to determine which side of the liver to inject on. Again, so the tumor determined by how much vascular shunting is occurring to the lungs, and how much is taken up either on the anterior or the posterior side of the liver and of the lungs too. So we're taking the lungs. I'll show you a sheet too that shows kind of like what I'm talking about, the calculations. But and then you'll be taking these pictures. You'll take the anterior, posterior for 2 minutes after you do the injection, and also you'll be considering the liver volume by comparing a CT or an ultrasound of the liver as well. So there's again a lot of stuff that goes even before getting into the OR. And then there's like a Therasphere order form. At least with Sunrise Hospital, they have an order form that's filled out by the nuclear medicine supervisor and the radiologist. And then there's a calculation that is used to determine what the dose is going to be to the liver, which is calculated when you multiply 50 by the injected activity, which is the 5 millicuries, and then you multiply that by 1 minus the fraction of the injected activity shunted to the lungs, and then all that's divided by the liver mass in kilograms. So what I have here are two sheets that Sunrise they provided for me to kind of use in my presentation. So on the left, you'll see a therapy record, which you'll be using before, during, and after the procedure. And before, it's going to help you determine, one, that you deliver the correct amount of dose and that you've received the correct amount of dose when it's delivered via Cardinal, when it's first like in the packaging and everything. And then afterwards, you kind of take the residual and figure out how much of the prescribed dose was actually delivered to, again, cover your tracks to make sure that the correct amount of dose was delivered to prevent as minimal normal tissue death as possible. And then on the right is a sheet you'll use after the MA liver scan. And you see there that it has counts. You'll collect counts of the anterior lung, posterior lung, and then the anterior lung background, posterior lung background, and then the same things for the liver as well. And then you'll find a percentage of the how much a percentage of the total lung counts compared to the total amount of counts in the scan, and that will determine, again, the dose and the side of the tumor that the side of the liver that the tumor is on. Okay, so now we get to the point after that we determine what the dose is going to be, and we have Cardinal deliver the dose to us after looking at the therapy order form. And it's kind of interesting when they brought it, because it's a very high dosage, because the Theraspheres, the microspheres, they emit beta emissions. So you have to be really careful. You have to be really certain, even how you measure it, right? So they use instead of using the Geiger-Müller, they use an ionization chamber, and they put the dose. It comes in this it's unfortunate because I was going to show you guys. They kind of gave me a Therasphere container that's completely dead, like it all decayed away and everything, but they gave me the container that the dose comes in, and basically you take this, it's like this little cylinder container. It's about, like, let's say, like the size of my, like, from my wrist to like half my forearm, and um, they put it in this like cylinder, like this tall cylinder that's like almost as, I don't know if you guys see my water bottle, but it's about like that. It's about as tall as my 64-ounce water bottle, and they measure the activity from every 90 degrees. And it was just so interesting to see. And then after they do that, there's this cart that I'll show in the next picture that um, that they use, that has basically this box, right? And it has all these kind of crevices inside of it, and then it has tubing for one side of the tubings for saline, because you'll be pushing, like, it's about 50 mils of saline as you're pushing in the dose. And you know what? Maybe I could show you guys the picture first and then go back. Hold on. I think that might be a little easier. Okay, so on the left there's the box I was talking about. And it has like labels like A, B, C, D, E. It has all these labels where you put, and then on the tubing it has like letters attached, like on these little paper sheets onto the tubing, where you place each location, each letter corresponding to the box. And then you see on the left I have it before it was prepared, and on the right I have it after it was prepared. You see the saline bag, and basically in the middle, right, you have that container I was talking about. That's the one I got to keep home, the gray one. They put the dose inside of there, and they don't um, open the dose until, because again, that's a dead one. They don't open the dose until they get into the OR, and you see that syringe with the yellow and green cap. Basically what they do is, like, they'll puncture the top of the dose inside of the gray case. It kind of comes in like a like aminophylline. You know how it comes in those little vials? That's what the dose comes in too. So you have it all in this box. You puncture it, and you don't even expose it, right? And then You press the green cap to completely open it up, and then it on the other side you see there's like well, I guess you can't see from here, but on the other side there's tubing that comes out from the gray container, and then it wraps all around, and then there's an end where um I wish I really could have showed you guys in class, but there's a on the other side, on the right picture, on the other side of like by the saline, there's like a white little hook. That's where the interventional radiologist is going to connect to when injecting into the patient. So it's all this such intricate stuff. It's so intricate. But let me go back if I can. I hope I can. Hold on. Okay, well, I guess I could just tell you guys what the other slide said. So basically, our job as a nuclear medicine technologist during these Theraspheres is to set up this device, set up the dose for the interventional radiologist. And what the interventional radiologist does is basically starts, oh, it was so cool. So like they were in special procedures in the OR. They inject into the central line, right? And they connect their tubing to yours, and then um, they're the ones that inject, right? So they're doing it at a certain rate that was um, determined beforehand, and it was so crazy, like being in there and hearing them all like talking to us, and like I was able to ask a lot of questions too. But then they're injecting, and then after they inject, once they finish all the injections, so they inject um, the saline as well. They unhook it, they give you the tubing, and then you have to dispose everything, the tubing and everything, into that like kind of that cylinder can to the right of the box on the right picture with the cap and everything, and that's what you're going to use to dispose of all the radioactivity. And they keep it in a hot lab like behind this huge L shield to let it kind of decay away. And let's see. Yeah, and then you have to survey the interventional radiologist's hands and feet, and then you have to take his gloves. He puts the gloves usually in the cylinder, and then that's just that's that's just the procedure, right? So after the procedure, after you put everything away, you have to do a bunch more paperwork. So you have to complete that therapy record I was talking about before, where it had basically you're gonna determine you're gonna measure the dose again after the fact from every 90 degrees, and then you're gonna use those measurements, and you're gonna use the percentage shunting, the dose delivered, and the dose that was measured before you injected. All these numbers, all this data to calculate the amount of dose that was delivered and the percentage of the prescribed dose that was delivered. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but I'd highly recommend that you guys try to get to see it, because it's unlike anything I've like seen so far. So it you can see it's kind of easy for me to kind of just remember. Like I have such pictures in my head, but and then you have to do a written directive, and the written directive is pretty straightforward. It has basically from start to finish, it goes over what um, it's basically like checking your work, because you'll have the doctor sign off on the therapy record, on the written directive, on the order, and basically this is just laying out from the first scan, the MAA liver scan, all the way down to your calculations. You're just kind of checking your work, and then you have a technologist check your work as well, another technologist, to make sure again everything is all clear. Okay, so then there's the therapy record again, and then there on the left is that written directive. And it just again goes over, you're just kind of checking your work, kind of laying it out for the doctor to see. And I wonder if I can zoom in, that'd be kind of cool. I don't think I can. Okay, that's all right. But on the right side, if you guys can see pretty well, for mine it's kind of zoomed in a lot because I'm presenting. But if you can see on the right there, it has the calculations kind of like laid out for you, like a thyroid ablation would be, or the uptake scans. Sorry. the percentage uptake, like how you determine that. It usually has it laid out for you, so they make it pretty straightforward. It's just it does take a lot of time. So like the whole process really would take like it took like 5 hours, like from doing the paperwork, doing the calculations, measuring the dose, delivering the dose, because they have to prep the patient in the OR. They have to do basically they're doing that ultrasound like I was telling you beforehand, and then the CT as well, and then you freaking do your part, and then you go back and you have to fill all this out, finish the calculations. Oh, and also, again, like I was mentioning at the basics, after they do the picture, I don't know if I mentioned this part, but I will mention it now. After they do the procedure, they bring them into your department, and you do that anterior posterior again of 2 minutes over the liver with them supine, and then on top of that, they have you measure over their liver with the Geiger Mueller counter. I was like, what the heck? So it's just like all these different areas kind of checking your work, and then you're checking the counts. Like as soon as they're done ablating this liver tumor, it's awesome. It's so awesome. But oh, okay, that's my last slide. But yeah, so um, I highly recommend it. The Steve's review kind of gives like a really bare bones, like it's only like 2 paragraphs what this is going over. So I found a lot of my information from Sunrise and from watching it. I only watched it once. I've only watched it once so far, and it's like holy crap! You learn a lot. And then I also used the website as well to kind of help with more indications because the protocol binder only had one indication. So um, yeah, that's my presentation. Sorry I went a little longer, but I hope you guys get to see a Y90 Therasphere sometime in the future.